I don't know if any of you have seen this Next Level Flat Earth documentary, but recently I took a look at part of it, and I have to wonder how anyone can take this seriously. So I'm going to take a satirical look at one part of this because I think I know what's at the North Pole.
On the other hand, we have the North, which is also off limits.
I went on my first official trip. I was going with my father and my grandpa Sinclair up to the North Pole.
Pierre Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada, and I happened to find a copy of Justin's eulogy, so let's see what he really said.
I was about 6 years old when I went on my first official trip. I was going with my father and my grandpa Sinclair up to the North Pole.
Nobody's stupid enough to take a 6-year-old on a trip to the North Pole. It was actually to a base in northern Canada.
Up to the North Pole. It was a very glamorous destination. I figured I was finally going to be let into the reason for the existence of this high security Arctic base. That was exactly right. We drove slowly through and past the buildings on a special top secret mission. And that's when I understood just how powerful and wonderful my father was.
Now let's see what Justin really said when he looked into a window.
So I clambered over the snowbank, boosted up to the window, rubbed my sleeve against the frosty glass to see inside, and as my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I saw a figure hunched over one of many work tables that seemed very cluttered. He was wearing a red suit with a furry white trim. And that's when I understood just how powerful and wonderful my father was.
Well, let's be honest, when you misrepresent a speech like this, it pretty much shows that these individuals are not only blatant liars, but the documentary is also a blatant lie.
There's definitely something special going on up there, and if you just think about that long enough, why do compasses point north? I mean, that's really wild in itself. What if we all took our compasses out and just followed them until it stops?
A compass will always point north, towards the magnetic north. There's some kind of force or some type of energy, frequency, vibration that's pulling that needle to the north.
It's crazy to think that all compasses are pointing north to the North Pole. No compass points south. There is no South Pole. There's no compass that's going to go south. And no, it's come to the north. There's something there.
So why do compasses and magnetic declination always seem to baffle flat earthers? I mean, we have a very good understanding of why we have a magnetic field around the Earth, and the compass actually points to the magnetic poles, not the geographic poles. Sometimes I wonder if part of the problem is that these days most everybody uses GPS to tell them how to get to a destination. I mean, do they even know how to read a simple map? When I was younger, most everybody had a city and state map in their car's glove box, and they knew how to use them. I was taught how to use a compass and a topographic map at a very young age. I grew up in Seattle. We have a lot of mountains in our area, and I spent quite a bit of time out in the wilderness. So this was before cell phones were even thought of. So you had to be self-reliant. You had to be able to know how to find your location, especially when you were doing cross-country hiking. This is a USGS topographic map of the southwest part of Mount Rainier National Park, and down here at the bottom left, circled in a red box, is information about magnetic declination. So here's a close-up. Down in the very lower right, the map date is 2020, and the declination is 15 degrees 14 minutes. Now, back in the 1980s, the declination in this area was about 20 degrees, so it has changed. Now, finding true north is quite easy. You have the needle of the compass pointing to 15 degrees 14 minutes, and now you know that this part of the compass is aligned with true north.
When I was a kid in school, they showed us a National Geographic video of the guys getting to the North Pole, and they just basically made it look so horrible and miserable and dark and cold that no kid ever in his life would go, hey, I want to go to the North Pole.
So if you watch any documentary about the North Pole or anybody venturing to the North Pole, all you're going to find is some dude mobbing on an ice sheet, and he's got a little device in his hand. He's like, 3, 2, 1, North Pole. And that's not the North Pole, man. That's bullshit.
Well, Dave, if you think the North Pole is just some holiday destination, you might just want to talk to these people because, yes, it can get brutally cold and miserable up there, not to mention the danger of polar bears.
Cartographers have charted, maps with land in the center, where all compasses point. There's just a lot of evidence pointing to more land. So yeah, 100%, I would put my life on it if there's more land at the north. It's just as heavily guarded as the south.
Can't like go check the north and yeah, let me go check. I'll take some pictures and videos and come back. You're not even gonna get that close. You're gonna be turned around, the same as the south.
All the way up until the 1600s, they had 4 land masses around the North Pole region. And right after the 1600s is when it slowly started disappearing until finally it was all gone.
And here is some supporting evidence.
I just don't know what this is.
It's a map. My father showed me a map like this once. Inside the circle is your world and my world. Many others. No one knows how many. The Dark Tower stands at the center of all things.
So a sci-fi movie is evidence? Seriously? Well, if they're claiming that old maps showed land around the North Pole, they should realize that many of these maps also showed sea monsters. So I'm surprised that they didn't include Godzilla as more evidence that we're being lied to.
Richard Byrd said he found more land, in the north as well as the south. There's a book called The Smokey God of a father and son that end up finding more land in a race of giants with technology beyond your wildest imagination.
Well, as I have highlighted here, The Smokey God is a book presented as a true account written by Willis George Emerson in 1908, which describes the adventures of Olaf Janssen. Apparently, he was on his deathbed, a Norwegian sailor who sailed with his father through an entrance to the Earth's interior at the North Pole. Now, an internet search shows quite a few different covers for different printings of this book. But there is also an online copy. Now I'm going to read a description of this world from Part 3, Beyond the North Wind. Although we now knew that we had sailed over the curve or edge of the Earth's aperture and were far along southward on the inside surface of the Earth's crust, which, according to my father's estimate and my own, is about 300 miles in thickness from the inside to the outside surface. Relatively speaking, it is no thicker than an eggshell, so that there is almost as much surface on the inside as on the outside of Earth. The great luminous cloud or ball of dull red fire, fiery red in the morning and evenings, and during the day giving off a beautiful white light, the Smokey God, is seemingly suspended in the center of the great vacuum within the Earth. Now, not only is the idea of a hollow Earth pretty far-fetched, but these are people that don't believe in gravity. So exactly what magical force is keeping people attached to both sides of the Earth's crust?
It is a hyperbola. Because we live in a toroidal field solar system, there must be a plane of inertia intersecting it in the middle, and there must be a hyperbola, hourglass, in the middle. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, it calls this Mount Meru. And why are we not allowed to go anywhere near there? Well, simply because you cannot go there. It is a magnetic toroidal hyperbola. Therefore, there is no way that you can fly anywhere near the North Pole in the center of the Earth.
Well, I don't know about you, but to me this seems like another case of if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. So what is at the North Pole? Well, I think it was Justin that gave us a clue.
I saw a figure, hunched over one of many work tables that seemed very cluttered. He was wearing a red suit with that furry white trim.
Yep, it would have to be Santa's North Pole factory, not only hidden by a mountain range, but the North Pole is also the center of the toroidal field protection, and only Santa has the magic to enter and leave. So yes, you are not allowed to explore the North Pole because Santa just might get a little upset. And I hope the truth doesn't spoil Christmas for you.